Alright, so since a lot of guys have been contacting me about making a video about how all of this gets put together. So on the top here, let's start with this mount first. So this was a mount that I used last season for my Livescope. This was off from, I believe this is a water snake boat mount. So, and then this pole here, I cut this pole, one of my old Summit ice fishing transducer poles. So you guys can see in the bottom here, is connected here, but I am going to reinforce this only because it still wiggles a little bit because of the 2 screws that I have underneath. So we'll reinforce that, should fix that problem just a little bit. Okay, so here's the mount. So let's go to the battery pack that I'm using. So as you guys can see here, this is 12 volt. The motor is 12 volt as well. So I'm using my Milwaukee lithium batteries. I have a whole bunch of these batteries. So the one that you guys saw yesterday was a 6 amp, and this is a 2 amp. So cuts the weight down just a little bit. And just to let you guys know, this whole unit here, besides the transducer, weighs about 3.5 pounds with my 6 amp battery. But this is a 2 amp, I believe, and it weighs 3 pounds 2 ounces, something like that. So one of the last things that I still have to put on here is the arrow. I ordered something from Amazon, so it should be here today, and I will be able to put that on. So as you guys can see here, I'm just gonna turn it. So then the arrow, every time I turn it, if I look at the arrow, I will know which direction my Livescope is turning. So I am gonna open this up, show you guys how the wiring and the inside looks like. Might look a little messy, but it is what it is. And everything that's in the video here that I'm using, you guys can use other stuff too. You guys don't have to use specifically what I listed. So I mean, it's your project, so use what works best for you and your setup. And in this case, this is my setup for my kayak. So if you're on a boat, it might be a little bit different on how you set it up. And then it just pulls right over that shaft. So this is what I'm working with on the inside here, just underneath the cover. Probably put a shorter screw sooner or later, but just want to put it together and see if what's working and what's not working. So as you guys can see in here, I got the motor. This is a double shaft motor. I am running the 15 RPM. So as you guys can see here, when I'm turning, it turns pretty quick. If you guys want something slower, they have a 5 RPM and a 10 RPM. I might go back and get a 5, so that when I'm scanning, it's a lot slower. But if this one works fine. So the motor here, this here is the harness, which is for the wireless remote. Everything is pretty much plug and play. You gotta wire up the connectors together and whatnot. I still gotta shrink these up, but everything is a plug and play process. I did list the one that I'm using here. And then pretty much what you have to do here is, so on the top here, you guys can see there's 4 holes. So on the bottom there is 4 holes as well. So what you got to do is, what I did was I took this plate on the bottom here, this plate, I took that off. And be careful when you guys take that off, because the gears inside of there are comes off pretty easy. Don't ask me how I know, but it was a pain to get that stuff back together. So you can take that plate off and then mount it on the inside here, and then you can pre-drill your holes to where you're gonna put your bolts on to mount your motor to your box. And all these screws here are all M4 screws. So I bought like a big box of them, since it comes in different sizes. And underneath here, as you guys can see, I got the screws. So 1, 2, 3, and then 4 in the back over there. You guys probably can't see that, but. And then the next piece is, so on the shaft, There's a shaft, like I said, on the top and the bottom. So now this flange right here is an 8mm flange. So make sure you guys get an 8mm flange. And then there's 4 bolts that holds that on. So this piece of plastic here. So I was trying. This was probably the most difficult thing for me to do, was trying to see how I'm gonna bolt this bottom part here to this top part. And then it took me so long. I realized and remembered that I have like a piece of plastic in the garage. This is HDPE plastic. So what I did was I lined everything up, traced everything really good. Then I bolt the flange down first. And then on the bottom here, this is not a flange, but this is actually a 3/4 of an inch curtain rod holder for like showers and stuff. So I really went far on how I wanted to do this project. As you know, there's not a lot of videos out there on how you do it, but you know, a lot of people, they have videos of, you know, showing off how it works. So that's what I did. So 3/4 of an inch shower curtain rod holder, and then this is a 3/4 of an inch PVC coupler. So what I did was I had to warm this top portion up just a little bit so I can slip this part on. Then I put a bolt on the back, or a screw in the back. And then the bottom shaft here, this is from the Summit pole as well that I told you guys. So this is 3/4 of an inch also, so it fit the PVC perfectly. And then I just put some screws in from the front and the back side. So now going down the pole, as you guys can see, the pole is cut down to fit my kayak. I have about a foot underneath the bottom of my hull, so just enough. So when I'm scanning, I'm not seeing my boat. So this bottom part down here holding the transducer, this is actually from my ice fishing shuttle from Tactical Grip Fishing. So I just took that off and put it on this shaft here. So everything looks like it's on pretty good. And if I want to do like a perspective view too, you know, take this off here, but you know, I will have to mark where my perspective mode is, because you know that does matter. Because if I'm like in forward view here, but when I go perspective mode, my forward changes from out in front to this side over here. So I don't really use perspective, so I don't really see myself trying to fix that issue there. But yep, transducer holder from Tactical Grip, and then I got my transducer, and then my bass tank, the bass tank Guardian. This is the transducer cover. So that is pretty much the video on how to put this cheap wireless transducer pole together. You do see that there's a lot of companies that make their own. When I looked at their setups, some of their setups look similar to what I'm using, but you know, it's like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars, and I was not gonna fork up that much money for something that, you know, I can build myself. But thanks to the guy that I saw the post, I believe it was Livescope Q&A. This top piece here, this piece was actually from my Yak Attack. It's for these mounts. Let me show you guys. So the mounts in the back here, so you guys can see that, the top piece there. So I have like 2 extra ones. I was trying so hard on, man, how am I gonna mount the arrow on the top? So luckily I went through all my drawers, my junk drawers actually, and I found this piece. I'm like, I wonder if that'll fit. So the shaft actually fits this thing perfectly. I might still drill some holes and just put a bolt there, just so, you know, this thing doesn't come apart. But on the top piece here, just a 1/4x20 nut. And I have a lot of 1/4x20 screws and nuts laying around in my junk drawer. Once the arrow comes in today, I will put that on and maybe post another video on Facebook and YouTube. So if you guys have any questions on this setup, you know, just leave me a message and, you know, we can talk about it. But like I said, this was a setup that was meant for my kayak and how I wanted it to be. You guys don't have to do it the same way as this, but I'm putting out my parts list and everything on there. So look at that list and just determine what you guys need and don't need. Besides that, yeah, that is the whole piece on how to make a wireless transducer pole. Any let me know.